Respect is one of the greatest treasures you can possess in this life. It's not about being liked by everyone. That's a fool's errand. True respect comes from being someone of substance, someone who lives with integrity and authenticity. And you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to earn it. I see too many people, especially those of a quieter nature, struggling to find their confidence and self-respect. They think being soft-spoken or reserved means they'll be overlooked, trampled on, or disregarded. But nothing could be further from the truth. Some of the most respected people in history were not bombastic showmen, but humble, understated leaders who commanded a room simply by walking into it. Their power came from within, from the depths of their character and unshakable self-belief. Maya Angelou said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. That's the essence of true respect. It's about the indelible impression you leave through your actions. So for those of you who've been told your quiet demeanor is a weakness, I'm here to shatter that myth once and for all. What others see as meekness, I recognize as a profound strength, because respecting yourself enough to be who you are, despite outside voices telling you otherwise, that takes incredible courage and fortitude. But respect from others doesn't come automatically just because you're an introvert or reserved person. It's something you must cultivate actively through your habits and choices. That's what I want to dive into today. 8 powerful habits that can transform you into one of the most respected people in any room, without you ever having to raise your voice. Habit way. Develop a towering mind. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. The first habit is an inside job, developing a psychological fortitude that cannot be shaken by criticism or adversity. When you have a strong inner foundation and belief in yourself, it shows through in the way you carry yourself. There's a quiet confidence, an understated power that doesn't need to be proven to anyone. You already know your worth. This towering mind is built through voracious self-education, separating yourself from toxic influences and stripping away all the baggage and limiting beliefs that may have been thrust upon you. Replace those voices with a study of history's great thinkers and the unshakable philosophies that have guided luminaries for centuries. Now, I'm not saying become an arrogant person. Towering minds have an interesting humility about them. They don't need to flaunt their confidence because it's so deeply woven into their being. When you have this level of self-actualization, people can't help but respect you. It's a quiet strength that commands attention without demanding it. Having an unshakable inner foundation requires feeding your mind with the best ideas humanity has to offer. Study the great philosophical and spiritual traditions like Stoicism, Buddhism, and the teachings of thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. Let their timeless wisdom on living with virtue, fortitude, and equanimity become the bedrock of your character. At the same time, don't neglect modern thinkers who can help strengthen your intellectual and psychological defenses in this age of distraction and noise pollution. Learn from the perspectives of profound minds like Naval Ravikant, Robert Greene, and Ryan Holiday on cultivating perception, strategy, and prizing wisdom over transient pleasures. With these potent ideas as your foundational building blocks, you construct an inner citadel, a self-contained, unconquerable psyche that cannot be penetrated by the ephemeral trifles that derail most people's peace of mind. This is the power of a towering inner fortress. Habit 2 Atheists embrace the rhythm of silence. We live in a world that fears silence. It's seen as awkward or uncomfortable. But silence is the canvas upon which the most profound truths can be expressed. Part of what makes quiet people so magnetic is their comfort with stillness. They don't feel the need to constantly fill empty space with chatter. There's a cadence to how they communicate that draws others in to hear their measured words and insights. The ancient philosophers like Lao Tzu were the masters of harnessing the power of silence. He said, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." When you can find that inner calm, that centered presence like still waters, your speech becomes that much more impactful. People lean in to really listen. They respect your ability to harness silence as a force instead of being enslaved by the urge to constantly fill it. So embrace those quiet moments. Get comfortable with the cadence of pausing before speaking. Let the weight of your words hang in the air a little longer than normal. That's a practice of power that cannot be taught, only embodied. Speaking only what is essential requires the hard-earned skill of separating the wheat of your thoughts from the chaff. Too many feel the need to incessantly opine on every matter as a way to seek validation or prove their worth through volubility. The quiet person's path is more curative, subjecting each potential utterance through rigorous self-interrogation before allowing it to pass their lips. Is this thought original and insightful, or simply regurgitated conventional wisdom? Does it actually add substantive value to the conversation, or am I just mimicking accepted narratives to fit in? Is there a prudent pause I should take to gather my words more judiciously before speaking extemporaneously? With diligent practice, you cultivate the judicious restraint of a sniper, only taking the highest percentage shots, not a negligent spray of conversational machine gun fire. In doing so, people begin to respect the weight your words carry, because they recognize the incisive intentionality behind each one. Habit 3, discipline your speech. Now, just because you embrace silence doesn't mean you should become a mute. The third habit is about being very intentional and disciplined with the speech you do employ. When a naturally quiet person does choose to speak up, it should be with forethought, precision, and potent insight. No wasted words or fumfordams or oozes. Let your sentences be decisive, drawing from a well of cultivated wisdom and careful contemplation. As the Roman philosopher Publius Syrus said, I often regret having spoken, rarely having kept silent. Take that ancient wisdom to heart. Make sure when you do speak up, you're not just vomiting half-baked thoughts or speaking out of insecurity or impulse. No, you're delivering razor-sharp truth refined over time in the fires of contemplation. When people realize every word that escapes your lips has been carefully chosen and carries weight, they cannot help but respect the hell out of you. It's like an art form they're witnessing. The economy of speaking only what is absolutely essential. Habit 4, cultivate situational awareness. One thing quiet people tend to have is an incredible awareness of what's happening around them at any given moment. They're hyper-observant of shifts in energy, body language, expressions, and undercurrents that others miss while trapped in their own heads. This habit of supreme situational awareness, of truly being present, is so rare that it immediately commands respect from others. They feel seen in a way most people cannot offer because your depth of perception is so penetrating. The more you can hone this skill of reading any room, situation, or person state like a book, the more invaluable you become in any environment. It allows you to speak when the moment is right, interject insight with perfect timing, or pivot to bring things back on track when they're spiraling. It's an utterly practical type of emotional intelligence that separates respected leaders from the rest. So pay exquisite attention to your surroundings. To study behaviors and atmospheres like a scientist, awaken all of your senses, not just your eyes and ears. Let the ability to diagnose any situation in an instant become a superpower. I promise the amount of respect you command will increase tenfold. The ability to immediately diagnose the atmospheric conditions of any environment or personal interaction is a superpower. To be so exquisitely attuned to the subtle energetic currents, the unspoken tensions and relational subtext that often escapes distracted participants trapped in their own heads. This level of spherical situational awareness requires intense presence and the banishing of mental engrossment with the incessant narrative circuitry of your own psyche. Through disciplined meditation and the habit of being a keen observer, you can perceive an entire scene with your full complement of senses in panoramic widescreen. With this profound situational literacy, you become impossible to take by surprise. You hold a decisive advantage in any social situation, business negotiation, or high-stakes scenario because your awareness subsumes all the data points others carelessly overlook. What chance does someone operating with such constrained tunnel vision have against your evolved spherical command of all stimuli? Develop this skill and gain instantaneous respect from those around you by being anthemic, while they remain outmatched and out of their depth. Habit 5, be unshakably consistent. When you aren't the loudest or most bombastic personality, consistency becomes your calling card. It's what makes people's heads turn and say, now there's someone I can rely on through thick and thin. Too often, the loud talkers and big personalities are all bluster. They're one day, gone the next. Their words and actions wildly swing based on mood or circumstance. But a quiet person who couples consistency with all of the other habits I've mentioned, that's an individual of true integrity to be respected. Whether it's your habits, your principles, your opinion on issues, or the way you treat people with dignity. Make it rock solid. No wavering, no exceptions, no situational adjustments. Be the unwavering oak tree that doesn't bend in the winds of social pressure. It's said that a single lie destroys a whole reputation for integrity. So never compromise your ethical stance, no matter how minute or inconsequential a situation may appear. Be a person of such reliable character that your consistency becomes the very hallmark of your reputation. Once people witness this unshakable constancy over time, the respect they'll have for you will be unbreakable as well. You'll never be doubted, never be questioned, because your actions have forged an unimpeachable character beyond reproach. Habit 6. Master the spaces between Many respected quiet leaders recognize the power of being perceived as an outsider or observer in some ways. Not completely disengaged, but rather masterful at occupying those interstitial spaces on the periphery that others ignore. From these vantage points between the cracks of society, work, or social scenes, you gain an unparalleled perspective. It's easier to see the truth of how things really operate, dynamics others are blind to from within the fray. This habit of being a consummate observer doesn't make you disengaged or aloof. Rather, it's a powerful lens through which to analyze and deconstruct aspects of culture, business, relationships that others can never perceive as intimately. So position yourself as a keen witness and student of the spaces between the noise and chaos. Develop a reputation for being equally comfortable as an insider or outsider, never fully beholden to any one bubble or echo chamber. As the writer Justy Musk said, being an outsider is the ultimate freedom. Always remain a bit of an outsider, and people will respect your independent streak and clarity in a world gone mad with conformity. Habits say, be uncompromising about personal ethics. If habits 1 and 5 focused on the internal and external consistency, this one dials in on having an ethical core so titanium reinforced that no amount of money, power, or societal pressure could make you betray your values. Too many people, brash and quiet alike, will sell out their principles or settle for ethical relativity. But when you're uncompromising about your ethics and live with moral rigor, it's one of the most deeply respected traits in all walks of life. Develop your personal ethical philosophy. Through intense study and rational deliberation, what do you deem just and righteous? What missteps are unforgivable deal breakers for you? Get in touch with the deepest bedrock within your character from which you'll never stray. Emerson said, he is great who is what he is from nature and who never reminds us of others. That's the level of steadfast integrity and ethics and personality I'm talking about. Become renowned as someone of unimpeachable character, who would literally go bankrupt, go to jail, or make any sacrifice rather than violate their values. Let this be the hill you've chosen to die on, regardless of the short-term cost. True respect only comes when you live with that type of moral fiber. You immediately separate yourself from the current waves of cultural fickleness and whim. See the person of true grit that others can count on like the North Star to guide them in complicated ethical quandaries. Anything less risks being just another unprincipled whisper lost to the winds. Having an ethical code so unshakable, so rigorously defined and passionately defended, immediately separates you from the feeble masses who are merely weather vanes spinning with the capricious winds of social currents. To be a quiet person of profound, unwavering principle is to become one of society's rare statesmen in an era overrun with cowardly politicians. Your burning moral convictions act as a pole star, an eternal navigational reference that keeps you righted and provides a still point for the turning world, while lesser people frantically recalibrate their values based on what valorization button they're told to press that day. You stand unperturbed with a defiant ethical permanence. This is the power of being a verdant redwood amidst clouds of blustery sapling. People know exactly where they stand with you at all times. Because your integrity is not some flimsy virtue to be relinquished at the first whiff of inconvenience or uncertainty, but the unyielding heart soul of your identity itself. Does this make you immovable at times? Absolutely. And that unwavering ethical rigor is precisely what inspires the most profound levels of trust and respect from those with wisdom enough to recognize its rarity. Have a perspective that transcends. My final habit concerns having a perspective that goes beyond the petty, beyond the tribal infights and small squabbles that consume most people's lives and thoughts. This transcendent perspective comes from being an insatiable student of history, of philosophy, of the great teachers, writers, and wisdom traditions that stretch back millennia. When you've disconnected from the foibles and trivialities of the here, and now to glimpse the bigger picture of humanity's long journey, a profound sense of groundedness sets in. You no longer get caught up in hysteria or panic at every passing headline. You understand that it's all variations on a theme. Chapters in a longer human story filled with patterns and cycles that repeat over centuries. From this high vantage point, you aren't jaded or cynical, but realistic, calm, centered, and poised to apply timeless teachings to modern problems, because you have a much wider context to draw from. Let this quality become one of your greatest callings. Be the grounded one with a transcendent perspective that sees through the deafening noise and divisive rhetoric. Be the rock that others cling to for stable guidance and measured sense. Do this, and respect will be your permanent mantle. To see the grand sweep of history and our cosmic insignificance within its colossal scale. is paradoxically what provides the most empowering perspective. By letting go of the desperate attachment to our tiny story and widening our lens to include the full tapestry of the human drama and our place within the cosmos, we find joyous liberation. Study all the recurring mythologies, battles, and archetypal tales that have played out with slight variations across all cultures since antiquity. See how the same dance of human folly and striving persists eternally, with actors donning fresh costumes and calling it new. With this epochal perspective transcending our base stories, ego's myopia is shattered. Both its self-obsession over personal triumphs and petty insults dissolve into insignificance when faced with our temporal blip of existence within an incomprehensibly vast universe. Yet rather than despair, this fundamental reorientation fills you with stoic pragmatism and equanimity. By humbling yourself before the colossal indifference of it all, the gravity of one's challenges depressurizes, still worth tackling with vigor, but no longer motivating the frenetic anxiety caused by believing oneself the protagonist in a uniquely important story. Learn to zoom out to perceive both the micro and macro scales. In doing so, you'll emanate an unshakable poise and transcendent wisdom that immediately commands the respect of all who interact with you. So those are 8 powerful habits for you, the quieter ones among us, to master in order to command true respect wherever you go. The world needs you now more than ever. In an age of loud, flapping mouths devoid of substance, your thoughtful presence is the gravitational pull we require to find balance. Embrace these habits. Wield the power of your underrated reserve like a finely sharpened sword that cuts through the discord of shallowness. Still know that when you choose to speak with your measured words, still by the rhythms of silence, yet sharpened to a blistering precision and insight, we will all lean in to listen with rapt admiration and respect. Your greatness has been forged in the furnaces of contemplation, in the crucible of self-interrogation where you stripped away all that is vain and trivial to become steeled with integrity. So no longer let the noisy, insecure masses look down on your quiet power. Your time is passing. The path to being a respected, quiet person is not an easy one. It requires diligent inner work, strict self-discipline, and a willingness to walk the roads less traveled. But the rewards for those who persevere are incalculable. Imagine moving through this world as a stoic oak tree, unshakable, resolute, and respected by all who bask in your dignified presence. While those around you chase shallow trend after hollow trend, you remain spiritually fortified with the wisdom of the ages and grounded ethics. Your silence communicates more substance and character than the babbling of 1,000 loud fools. There will always be the insecure who mistake your introspective nature for weakness. Let them wallow in their myopic delusions. You know the truth, that your quiet power is an alluring force that naturally demands respect, an irresistible gravitational pull that brings those of high character into your orbit. So embrace these 8 habits. Chisel yourself into the rarest of modern human specimens, a person of few words, towering intellect, and uncompromising integrity. Let these practices be the crucible that transmutes you into one possessed of oceanic stillness internally, yet inexorable force externally. From this unshakable place of centeredness, your speech will be measured and weighted with profundity. Your personal philosophy will radiate through the coherence of your ethics and way of being. In doing so, you inspire others to demand more from themselves, simply through the integrity of your example. Ultimately, this journey inward and ascension of respect is not for the faint of heart. It's not for those who prioritize shallow popularity, wealth, or status over actualizing their highest potential. No, these pathways are reserved for the spiritual warriors, those who recognize this mortal coil as one infinitesimal blink in their eternal journey of becoming. So take a stand through your embracing of these habits. Anchor yourself in virtue, discipline, and wisdom. Be the example humanity so desperately needs in these fermenting times. For when the quiet person of conviction and impeccable character beats their chest, even the mightiest forest fire cannot drown out the resonance. Build your towering virtues one brick at a time through the decisions you make each day. Let the inevitable grumbling of critics roll off your stoic armor like raindrops. Their shrillness cannot dissuade you from your noble course. Soon. And the saying goes, your respected presence alone in a room will speak with a thunderous volume that renders others' words tiny and insignificant in comparison. To the life of respected impact, embedded virtue, and quiet mastery I call you. The age of boisterous hollow showman is ending. The era of grounded philosophic oaks now begins. Reclaim your birthright, my friends. Seize the reins of respected personal sovereignty. And through the integrity of your character and disciplined restraint, Others will have no choice but to revere you and hush tons of all.